Yo, welcome, friends. Wake up and think clearly. Today, we have special secret guest. Nobody knows who's showing up. Okay. So let's start the show. So I was looking at something on Facebook, and it made me think. I'm dangerous when I think. Um, so somebody put up a, hopefully for him, it looks like a meme. Oh, a meme on Facebook. Yes, I don't know how it's doing. Maybe he just typed up a thought, like "What's on your mind?" and he typed this out. Religion requires belief. Science requires doubt. If you believe in the science, you have science and religion mixed up. This generated some discussion. One person says, I believe in the method of science. The results are always up for review as more data become available. And someone responded to that, let's do that with religion too. Okay, someone else says, I think that what it really means is that science is that, say, if science says there's a 98% probability of A equals X, then don't go around claiming you're sure A equals X. And a lot of folk do so. Oh. Welcome, friend, enemy, kind mother,
Father.
Luis Del Pino.
Have you been?
Good, and you?
Good. Working hard.
How was your week?
Very busy.
Very busy?
Yes.
Does being busy make it go by faster?
In a sense.
Mm. Mm. And did you put out the fires?
Yes. Yes.
And
But life is a constant fire, so something else is gotta come up.
And what happens when a new fire shows up? You say, oh
You try
no,
to put it out.
here we go again.
Indeed.
That is each fire the same as previous fires, or do they have similar characteristics, or does each fire look totally different from other fires?
Spectrally, they all look different.
They all look different.
Essentially, it's all the same fire.
They're all the same fires.
The same fire.
Oh, there's only one fire.
But it takes many forms, many faces,
Takes many
many aspects.
aspects, many manifestations.
Actualizations, yes, of the same potential.
So there's a source to the fires. There's only
Yes.
one fire.
Yes. There's one
There's-
source for many fires.
There's but one fire.
Because the source cannot be a fire because it's not actualized.
there is
But-
but one fire.
It is one source, and all fires come from the same source.
Oh,
But of
there
course,
is
because
one source.
the fires they arise and they dissipate, they come and go. They are born and they disappear. They coalesce and dissipate. Well, between fires, there's the source. It's always there. The source is
Oh, so
always there.
There is not one fire, because if there was one fire, then one could say there is but one fire, and Mohammed is his prophet, or Luis del Pino is his prophet.
And you asked me if all the fires were the same. And I say, well, spectrally they're different, but in essence, they come from the same source, which is being with a capital
Especially,
B.
especially means perceptually.
On the surface,
Mm.
but deep inside at the essence, it's the same. They're the same one thing with different aspects.
There are many.
I'm describing reality. I'm
fires.
describing reality as a whole. But instead of calling phenomena cars and buildings, I'm calling them fires.
Morning,
Good
Peter.
Morning, Peter.
Peter, cotton eater. How are you this morning, Peter? Oh, you haven't been here for a while. Welcome back to Wake Up and Think Clearly, where we think about putting out fires, the fires
Think about thinking
of
clearly.
life. Yes, food is a form of fire. We ingest it and produce fire out of it. Energy that we need to go out and get some more fire in our stomach. Or make war or make love so that we may reproduce, continue our DNA so that coronaviruses can infest our cells so that they can produce their own kind. What do you think? Oh, I was looking at Facebook and I came to this this discussion. Let's see, where is it? Oh, now it's gone. Now, or maybe somebody put new stuff. Oh. Let's see. Oh, someone else is coming in. Let's welcome. S.A. Yes. We could also think of ourselves as sources for fires, we can present ourselves in different forms.
Santa Satan. Welcome. Santa Satan.
In different forms. So today I have taken on the form Gyro Jam Yang Pao, and then another person has taken on the form Luis Del Pino, and another person has taken on the form Peter, and another person has taken on the form uh, uh, Santa Satan. Oh, how can that be? By moving the letter N to different places, you create different forms. What do you think about this that I found on Facebook? Religion requires belief. Science requires doubt. If you believe in the science, you have science and religion mixed up. That produced some discussion. I think what it really means is that, say, if science says there's a 98% probability of A equals X, then don't go around claiming you're sure A equals X or A equals Y. A lot of folks do that. They go with complete nonsense that non-scientists like life coaches tell them on YouTube, whilst ignoring all the science. That is to say, all the evidence and analysis. Well, so, what's on your mind, anyone? You see, there's so you see, who is this? I'm making some food. Who? I guess Peter was referring to Santa Satan. Santa Satan. Do you believe in Santa or do you believe in Satan? Or there's the problem. Believing. Why do we believe? Is there a way to live out life without believing in anything?
Think of a mind of a child, of a baby, a toddler.
Think like a child.
Yeah, like a toddler, like a baby. He's going around looking at the world. Does a child believe anything before they are able to make up their own story about what they see?
Oh, the child will have to believe in what it sees. So the child should have confidence in sense awareness. Should develop it and synchronize the 5 senses. Oh, Satnam. That means truth is the name. Satnam
Yeah, I added an M in there. I had cheated, but Santas, Satan made me think of Satnam. To the question about can we live without believing, I think it is possible, very improbable. That means that a lot of people live believing. Very few people live without believing anything. They just take reality at face value,
Mm.
and they just go about like a toddler through life. No construction, no stories, no beliefs. It's just like, okay, this is what it is, and seeing it for what it is and how it is without inference. So it is possible.
Oh, so such person looking over the hill, above the hill sees smoke. So he does not infer that there is fire over the hill. He goes, climbs up the hill and looks down. Aha, there's fire. So it is possible, but we have to not believe in what we infer. We may infer where there's smoke, there is fire, but we have to place some doubt on it.
In mindfulness meditation, they talk about labeling thoughts and not running with them.
Mm.
That's the same exercise. You just, you're there sitting and your mind is going because it never stops. And basically, if you feel something, you go, I'm feeling this, or I'm thinking that, or I'm imagining this, or I'm believing that. And you just take a note, go, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing that.
Mm.
I'm sitting down, I have an itch. I'm thinking about having an itch. I'm thinking about thinking that I'm having an itch, etc., etc. So a constant folding back inside and not projecting. That's what the meditation is about. I mean, the beginning of Vipassana, which is insight meditation, which is precisely done to break down beliefs and inferences.
Mm.
The I.
Welcome, LRW. We were
Hi,
talking
Eloise.
about, is it possible to live without beliefs? But instead, in other words, thinking that everything that appears as face value and inferring or not inferring, or when we do infer, we place doubt on it until further evidence proves it. Like say where there's fire, there's smoke coming over the hill. So we have to first climb over the hill and look to see if there's fire. So we may infer that there's fire, but we should place doubt, a certain percentage of doubt on it. So we're free from all stories. We have no faith, no beliefs, no belief systems. Would not that be liberating? Anybody? What do you think? Is that possible?
I think that's what child development is all about.
Oh, interesting.
We start off with beliefs of some kind, not faith beliefs. But when that kid is 9, 10 months old and you put up the blanket, he believes that you disappeared.
Oh.
And that's why when you put it down, he's so startled. But I don't think you talk about that kind of belief, because our psychology is to fill in the blanks. So whatever we don't know, we believe. But if you talk about belief in immortal beings and spaghetti monsters and all of that kind of stuff, apparently we have a hard time doing that, because I think there's no cultures that have ever been found or we know about that didn't have some kind of belief system. But that's different than believing that when you see smoke, there's fire.
Mm.
The concrete, maybe that it is,
Oh.
concrete beliefs.
Yeah.
And
The
like
tangible.
Louise talks about metaphysical or
Right.
in-
The tangible versus the intangible. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Oh.
The
that's
tangible is
interesting.
easy for everybody. We all have the same five senses. But the sixth sense is where everything changes and we interpret, we reform our own idea of what we're seeing. And that's the
Mm.
intangible. And that's where there can be some, wait a minute, what are you looking at? What am I looking at? What are you making of this? And what am I making of this? That's the intangible area where things get complicated because typically we just don't see things exactly the same. Maybe a little bit, but not exactly the same, especially on the big questions or where do we come from? What are we? What's the meaning of life? And what's the nature of everything? And that's where things get a little bit complicated with regards to others and with regards to ourselves. Because at the end of the day, each mind has to make up its own mind.
I don't, Louise, I think you give humans more credit than they demonstrate that they deserve.
Well, they all have the potential. They all have the potential. So
Well-
you have to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well,
But you're right. You're right. I mean, this is. I'm a realist. I'm a realist. I see around me. I look at people. I listen to them. I share the planet with them, and I see how they think and how they act.
or
So-
how they don't think.
Or they don't think, or they don't act. So yeah, I'm no fool in that sense.
I know that, but I that often those who determine belief systems, the Pope, the priest, the shaman, who are all those people, are often concrete thinkers themselves, and they have shallow bases for beliefs. Why do you believe that? Because the Bible says.
Yeah.
She
Got it.
froze?
That's
Yeah.
in mind. I have to keep in mind that I'm a social worker and I've worked with all kinds of people. And I don't mean kinds, I mean people with levels of intelligence. And there is a certain level of intelligence, particularly if you talk about people with IQs under 75, their beliefs are not that much different than the 6-year-old. They don't contemplate the world. They don't contemplate much of anything. Look at these, excuse me, look at these guys that are going around doing all those shootings and things. And you listen to them talk, and they're just as shallow. They don't think. To talk about beliefs, we interpret their beliefs. Well, they're patriots or not patriots and all of that stuff. And then you listen to them talk. I did it because I was afraid. That's we're giving them more than they deserve in terms of expectations of understanding. But they're the people that we need to be afraid of because they don't think the way you think, Louise. You can see I've been thinking about this for a long time because I do think the way you think, Louise, but I found out that my expectations, psychological belief systems, metaphysical expectations are way beyond how people think. Not that they don't have the capacity, maybe, but they just don't do it. They just
So
don't.
where do you go for knowledge and wisdom? Not to those people, obviously.
Well, I get knowledge and wisdom. I get my knowledge and wisdom of them by being around them, observing them, and listening to them.
Yeah. So you can learn two ways.
That's
Well, three ways. Actually, it's always by comparison. You compare with others, and you take the good, you red line. You take the good and avoid the bad. If you look at people that are suffering and in distress, you try to avoid their ways of living. You know, they avoid the environment where they're in because, you know, if you're in a jail, in a prison, you are doomed to be surrounded by that kind of strife. So you want to get away from that. You want to think differently. You want to open your mind. You want comparative knowledge, and then you try to imitate the people that look to you to be at least happy or contented, or at least non-aggressive, or non-stressed, etc., etc. So where do you seek that? Where do you go? You have to kind of look around you and then make up your own system.
I don't do much in the way of imitation anymore, because there's so much hypocrisy and so much ignorance that I wouldn't trust a person to be the way they present themselves. So I don't look to them because I don't know who the them is. I don't really know who people are by how they present themselves.
Sure.
I know what I think they are or who I think they are. But I found out if you challenge them, they get angry.
Why would you challenge them?
Excuse me?
Why do you want to challenge them?
It's not that I want to challenge, it's that if I'm going to have a relationship with somebody, I don't mean sexual, I mean just friend, neighbor,
interaction.
Whatever. If I'm going to have a relationship with someone, I need to know who the someone is that I'm going to have a relationship. And as I dig into it or inquire about them, people get defensive. So when somebody says, well, I think Trump is a good person or God is a good, whatever it is, if you want to get somebody angry, all you have to do is say, well, why do you think that? And often you get, well, what do you mean? Or they just say, I don't know. Or everybody thinks that way. And if you push that a little, that's when you get the anger. And so I push it because I'm finding out, am I going to invest myself in a relationship, my time in a relationship with them? And the answer is no. You're right. You're shaking your head. But that's so many people, Louise. And if you want to be fair, you can't walk up to a person and just assume.
If you want to behold, if you want to contemplate life and be a thinker, a human, a real human, an awake human, you're going to be very lonely in the masses. There's no other way about it. There's no way about it. There's no other way. You're going to be isolating yourself from the human surroundings. And you have to be aware of that. You're going to be an outsider. I would recommend you read the book by Colin Wilson, The Outsider.
I think I read that.
And then the other book by Colin Wilson, The New Existentialism.
I don't think I read it, but I think it's in my book on my bookshelf.
And those two, you are an outsider. Just by asking those questions, you are an outsider. And the meaning that you're looking for, the truth, the understanding, the reality that you're looking for, you're not going to find it around you. You're gonna find it inside by looking out. You look outside, but you interact inside. You're gonna have to come up with your own understanding, your own picture of reality.
But then we end up with that back in that whole issue of solipsism. It just goes round. Everything. Maybe in religion or Christianity is true, but I don't believe that everything there is in me. I don't think I think I didn't grow up. I didn't spring full grown out of the head of Zeus.
No, but
I got here from parents and neighborhoods and all of that is me.
Yes.
But now you're saying ditch all of that and just be me. But I come to this thinking based on all of
in looking for the intangible, you don't let go or suppress or deny the tangible, because you're both. You have to do the dance of Shiva. You are tangible and intangible at the same time. You cannot disconnect from either.
I agree.
Okay,
I don't think the reality is a shadow on the cave wall.
Well, we can talk about that. We can talk about that. But if a reality is both tangible and intangible concurrently, you can't say that it is a shadow on the cave wall and it is not a shadow on the cave wall.
Actually,
at the same time.
It's both.
Right.
It's both.
So we agree on that. You still have to hang on to your tangible side, which is you and your surroundings, and your intangible side, which is going to tell you eventually that you and the surroundings and the intangible are the same one thing.
Are the same what?
Same one reality, same one thing, same one essence. So reality.
I don't disagree, except what you mean by same.
Unique, individual, and not dual, non-two. So the intangible, the tangible, and everything in between, which is consciousness, because consciousness looks at the tangible, but its other nature, the other side is intangible, are two sides of the same coin. So if you do not reach out to both sides of consciousness, which is the tangible and the intangible, you get lost, you get alienated, you lose yourself.
I wouldn't use consciousness that way. I've been thinking about that, and I know that you do. I would replace consciousness with the word reality.
Okay, consciousness is the organismic process through which reality is able to behold itself.
Well, not behold itself. We are able to behold reality, but it doesn't depend on our beholding of it.
Right.
To be.
It's there no matter what. But
I believe
are you not
that.
Are you
Everybody
not
doesn't
reality?
believe that, you know.
I know, but each mind makes up its own story. So my story, my epistemology says that I am reality. I'm not other than reality. So obviously this consciousness is reality looking at itself.
But it's not all that reality is. Reality is more than just a meeting of consciousnesses.
Yeah. On the surface, at the surface, I am not the whole reality, because I'm not you, I'm not the car, I'm not the building, I'm not the road, I'm not the forest, I'm not the other planet. But intangibly, essentially, I am the whole of reality, not aspectually, but essentially I am. So it's just a matter of the perspective. That's why
you and I go all like this, and then you go down like this, and I say,
right, because the rabbit hole, people think that the rabbit hole has an end, a cul-de-sac. You can go deep, 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 but there's a wall there. Everybody believes in a wall. As a matter of fact, we've been told you have to be like God, but you cannot be God. Okay, so I
not
mean,
me.
and you know, when I use the word God, I'm talking about reality. But reality cannot have a wall anywhere because it is eternal and infinite, because it is both tangible and intangible. So my way of thinking is I go all the way through the rabbit hole, and I end up in the same place where I started.
How would we know if reality, well, when you say infinite, there's a physical infinity, and then there's the mathematical
and there's the
infinity.
intangible infinity.
But we can't,
Because infinity is impossible. you cannot tangibilize.
it doesn't make any difference if it's possible or impossible. We wouldn't know. We can't live long enough. We don't live infinitely, infinite amount of time. So I can't tell anything. I can't say anything about what continues to exist when I'm not around, because I have no idea.
Listen, in order to understand infinity, your mind, your perspective has to become infinite.
I can't understand. But see, Louis, understanding something is not the same thing as its being.
Okay, so there you are. So the reality has to experience itself fully, like a superconductor. The consciousness has to become a superconductor. So the infinite and eternal can see and experience itself in its own infinity and eternity. That means that the mind has to get out of the way. The tangible mind, the tangible ideas, the walls that we throw in front of our own mind have to disappear. This is a mental thing. This is not a physical thing.
It's starting to sound like religion. Not really, not a particular religion, but that.
Do I sound like a religious person?
I said you're beginning to sound like that in what you're saying. I'm not talking about you personally. I'm not a therapist, so I can't talk on that level.
So obviously, if I'm not religious, that religiosity that you're thinking in there, it must be coming from your understanding, not mine, because I'm not religious.
But that's why I'm saying, I'm saying to you what I'm thinking. I'm not hiding my thoughts.
I know.
And I'm not attributing them to you. I talk out loud
to you. So
you can see where I am.
When in religion they tell you that God is eternal and infinite, I, on the other side, go, the rabbit hole of the mind, consciousness, is also eternal and infinite. There's no cul-de-sac. We can go through. And of course, when you go through and there's no end.
But that's what you believe.
Right.
You talk about that epistemological question. You don't know that. You can't experience infinity.
I experience that.
Infinity?
I am that. I'm telling you. But
I've got uncles that it's almost always men who talk like that, but they say stuff like that. You say it, but I can't accept it because I can't. There's no place.
It's not mandatory to do so. It's not mandatory to accept. It's up to each one.
But I don't mind trying to understand people. That's okay with me.
If you ask me and you say, Louis, do you think you're eternal and infinite? You are the whole of reality? And I'd say yes. And then you can think, Louis, you're completely crazy. I don't know what you're talking about. Or I think you're pulling my leg.
Is Luis inferring that being that his consciousness is riding along the present, and he sees that in his past days he was present, and so he can infer or project that he's always been present, and that consciousness has been present infinitely. It never had a beginning and it never had an end.
In another talk,
that sounds like, is it Buddhism or Hinduism? I'm not.
Our consciousness has no beginning and no end. So
per
that
secula seculorum
have infested, like our consciousness is like a coronavirus. We take on a cell when we infest it and produce more of us.
That's true.
A while back, we were talking about the consciousness, and I said consciousness is anything between a 0 and a 1, the 0 Kelvin. and the Planck scale energy, which is the tiniest bit of energy, quantum energy. That's the consciousness is there. Anything that vibrates is consciousness. So I don't limit the word consciousness to the consciousness of a human being, because I can talk about the consciousness of a mosquito, the consciousness of an amoeba, the consciousness of a virus, the consciousness of an atom, the consciousness of an electron, and et cetera, et cetera.
And the
So
consciousness of
which
a
would be any
person in
interchange
coma.
of data.
The consciousness of a person in coma is still there. It's
No,
still
We
they're
not
not.
aware.
anthropomorphize
It's still
They're
not
not
aware of anything.
consciousness.
Then I think
We
we're talking about different layers or types of consciousness.
Mhm.
When I think of conscious, I think of the Freudian definition about conscious, pre-conscious, and unconscious, and that's the picture I have in my head. I thought people, but it's also with the medical consciousness, you know, it's your heart beating and oxygen and stuff like that. And people in comas are not conscious, at least not biologically conscious. They're unconscious. That's what a coma is, by definition.
It's up to each mind. It's up to each mind to.
So unconsciousness simply means that consciousness is still there, but it is unaware because his senses have been shut off.
I kind of agree with that. The thing is, we can't know. We can't know the level of awareness of people who are in a coma unless we define it by biological terms. We can't define it metaphysically.
Yeah, I am not interested.
Become anesthetized before an operation, and then they give it to us, and then when it wears off, I'm
not really interested
aware again
in knowing the level of consciousness somebody who's in a coma. I'm interested in knowing my level of consciousness. I am interested in this consciousness.
Yes, but when you've undergone an operation, a surgery, wasn't there a moment that before they gave it to you, you were awake, and then the next moment you're awake and you missed out on a certain space of time? Where was your consciousness there? Was it there?
I've never been in a coma.
Did they kill you
when I'm sleeping
for that moment and resuscitate you? What was it doing?
Louis, when you say consciousness, because you talk about it a lot, what do you mean? What is a state of consciousness that's not non-biological? And I talk about heart rates and all of that stuff like that.
Yeah, so if we only talk about biological consciousness, anything that is alive and moves around and reproduces may have some level of consciousness. It's all in the spectrum. You know, the autism is in the spectrum. Well, consciousness is in the spectrum. Consciousness.
How do you define consciousness?
Consciousness is a function. Asymptotic is an asymptotic function between 0 and in the infinite.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's where we just got a divorce.
I know, because I do
You didn't know we were married, and we already got a divorce.
We're two aspects.
That's so American, isn't it?
We're two aspects of the same reality, but in a sense, reality is looking at itself. Your consciousness, your individual consciousness, which is universal consciousness, is not at the same point in the graph as mine. But we are the same consciousness in different levels between the 0 and infinity. Understanding and direct experiencing of reality. Let's put it this way: as consciousness goes up towards infinity, reality is looking at itself better and better and better. So the glass through which the consciousness, the glasses through which reality is looking at itself, become more accurate, more precise, more transparent. So basically, I mean, that's the way I look at things. I do not limit the consciousness to human beings.
I
It's
got
just-
it.
It is so. What does it have to do with us and not
I got
mosquitoes
it.
or the planet or
I
the
will
galaxies?
interpret Luis del Pinoism for you. So imagine that we are on Zoom and there are many people on Zoom at this time. So the head of Zoom is reality. So through us using Zoom, the head of Zoom is looking at what we're looking at. So Zoom is the ultimate reality, looking at what we're seeing all at once, and is able to be aware of everything that is going on in Zoom all at once. And it says, I am, therefore I Zoom.
He likes that. We woke him up, Louis. We woke him
So
up.
I am, therefore I am.
Well, my question is, what is ultimate reality as opposed to reality? There are levels of reality. Is that what we're talking about?
There are different ways, different intent, different clarities through which reality looks at itself, obviously, because there's only one reality, right? There are not 2 or 3 or 5 or 15 realities.
I don't know that.
Well, if there is 2 realities, which one is really ultimately real?
Mm.
But how